And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell with a global simulcast. Carol Massar and Tim Stenovec join us from the radio room. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including all of those folks watching us here on YouTube. The majority of the stocks, Carol Massar, in the S&P higher. But this is not a broad-based rally. This is about oil stocks. It's about defense stocks. To a certain extent, Carol Massar, it's about financials.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, as we get ready
Did you just twist your head at me?
Which one? Which one of us? No, yeah, it's obviously, the trade off of what happened in Venezuela over the weekend, no doubt about that. But I will, having said that, you are also seeing semiconductors higher. The SOX is up about 1%. And the Max 7, we saw some outperformance also during the day. So investors willing to take on some risk here on this Monday.
Not all energy stocks are higher, though, on the day. There are those domestic producers here in the U.S. that are focused on shale. Perhaps we're seeing a rotation out of some of those names. I'm thinking Diamondback, APA Corp, Devon Energy, and more.
Yeah, no, it's a good point that it's not blanket good news for some of these energy names, but certainly that's being overwhelmed by some of the giants that you're seeing put up really impressive gains today, Romaine.
But it's also interesting, too. I mean, I know Tim is trying to be a Debbie Downer here, telling us all that's falling, but when you think about this idea of the oil services sector, so take the OSX in Philadelphia. I mean, that's having its best day in quite some time, I think since April of last year, now at the highest levels in quite some time. You got financials at record highs, just a few days before the next earnings season kicks off. And then those aerospace and defense stocks also at record highs, having their best day going back to that post-Liberation Day move higher. So maybe some optimism if you're picking and choosing, or if you want to follow Tim Stenovec, a little bit of pessimism.
Or you could have just talked about the Dow Jones Industrial Average actually hitting a record intraday, and maybe we're here at a record close, too.
Katie has mentioned that several times today.
Against my will.
Yeah, and against my best wishes as well. But thank you for that, Carol Massar. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, as Carol Massar just told you, up almost 600 points on the day, about 1.2%. The S&P adding 40 points, or about 0.6% on the day. The NASDAQ Composite up about 0.7%. But your outperformers today, you're going to find that in the small, mid-cap, and cyclical spaces. The mid-cap's up about 1.3%, transport's up 1.2%, and the Russell 2000 adding 1.6%.
All right, back to the big caps I go. S&P 500, as Romaine mentioned earlier, most names in the S&P higher today. 341 names, Katie, to the upside, 161 losing some ground, 2 unchanged.
Well, let's go talk to the Circle about it. The first time checking the Circle in 2026, and boy, it's actually really interesting today. Up top, well, you don't exactly see that. Big tech, of course, we have to acknowledge that. That is one of your biggest losers when it comes to a points basis. That's why it's highlighted. But overall, what a day that you saw for energy, that you saw for financials, consumer discretionary also catching a bid. 7 sectors in total finishing in the green. A different story when it comes to the downside. We talked about tech, but utilities, your biggest losers on a percent basis. Consumer staples falling as well. This was a risk-on day.
All right, so let's get to, Katie mentioned certainly the energy outperformance as a whole. So let's go through some of the names that definitely gained in today's session. Of course, the news, President Trump pledging to revive the Venezuelan energy sector following the capture of that country's president, Nicolas Maduro, over the weekend. Valero, we saw that one up about 9% in today's session. Formerly Schlumberger, now SLB, that one was up about 9% in today's session. Halliburton up almost 8%, and Chevron up about 5%. Of course, very key in terms of its positioning and exposure there in Venezuela. I should point out, Siebert Financial's Chief Investment Officer, Mark Malik, put out a note, and he said the U.S. Gulf Coast refiners with years of experience building and optimizing refineries to handle that heavy Canadian crude stand to benefit in the event changes in Venezuela restore output of that country's heavy sour oil. So that's why you saw names certainly like Valero and others, and some of these major integrated oil companies who can handle all of that. All right, now
did you see that interview that Michael Burry gave? I think it was to CNBC about his bet on Valero that I guess he said he entered into back in 2020.
No.
Yeah.
And would it?
Yeah, check it out. Yeah, basically saying not that he saw this coming today, but the idea that he thought he saw some potential all the way back in 2020 for a big infrastructure shift in Venezuela.
Oh, well, that's interesting, right? But we'll see. Like, I'm sure you guys have had the conversation, the amount of money that's going to take to kind of rebuild Venezuela's energy industry. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take some time. It's got to have companies that are comfortable that there's going to be political stability and maybe a democratic or business-friendly environment. Hey, courtesy of Tim. He talked to me about the nuclear fuel makers that were rallying. They got a total of $2.7 billion from the U.S. to restart production and wean the U.S. off enriched uranium. So the company is impacted. Ticker LEU, Centrus Energy. They're based in Maryland. They got money, and they're up 10% in today's session. And then ADRs of the Canadian-based Silex Systems, their co-owner of Global Laser Enrichment, which also was awarded money. That one was up almost 11% in today's session. And then for something a little different, I'm going to go to a biotech, Altimmune. That one jumping nearly 30% intraday at its high, finishing the day with a gain of just about 16%, 17%. The drug developer said its experimental therapy for a fatty liver disease, pemvidutide, received a breakthrough therapy designation from the FDA. I'm not quite sure if I said that right, but you know, sometimes when you don't, you just own it, go fast, and move on.
Yeah, it was an interesting selection there. You missed a few, though. QXO up 18% on the day.
I thought I had enough. Poor Finley.
Alcoa
Like she had to
up
put
Romaine,
in
happy
a
New
lot of
Happy
tickers.
New
Happy New Year
Romaine.
to you, Tim Stenovec.
Yeah.
I missed you.
It's so good
Yeah.
to have you back.
Let's get to some of the decliners on the day today. I do want to start with some of the energy stocks that did not actually finish higher on the day. Diamondback Energy, ticker FANG, down 3.5% on the day today. As I mentioned, we did see a rotation out of some energy stocks, especially U.S.-focused shale oil producers. If more oil companies come online, we could see greater supply and lower prices, which wouldn't be good for these domestic shale producers. Some of them are already slowing down growth due to concern for a global gut developing. Shout out to our energy team for helping me out with that analysis over at Bloomberg News. Diamondback Energy, Coterra Energy, Expand, APA Corp, and more actually fell today. Once again, Diamondback Energy down 3.5%. And we also saw pharmaceuticals take a hit today, bucking the broader market's advance. The S&P 500 Pharmaceutical Index fell the most going back to September. Eli Lilly among the decliners, down 3.6%. Of the 7 stocks in there, 5 did fall today. And finally, Versant shares started trading today. This is the spin-off from Comcast of some of the cable networks, including CNBC and MS Now. Fell as much as 15.8% in the first day of trading. It ended up finishing the day down by 13%. The company has a market cap right now of about $5.8 billion. Fees from pay TV distributors and advertising were expected to have fallen. The company predicted earnings before interest, taxes, and depreciation and amortization would drop to $2.15 billion on sales of $6.62 billion for 2025.
All right, let's take a quick check on the yield space right now. A little bit less activity there compared to what we saw in equity markets, but we did see a drop across the curve today, about 2 basis points lower on the short end of the curve. Longer end of the curve, a little bit more dramatic with a drop of about 3 to 4 basis points there. Carol?
All right, so let's get to some stories on our radar. Hey, if you're thinking about maybe, you know, sprucing up your home, you might want to maybe get a TV that actually looks like artwork. It seems to be the trend all of a sudden, and Amazon getting in on the game. It's called the Amazon Ember Art Line, Tim.
So if it looks familiar, it's because it kind of looks like Samsung's Frame TV, but it comes at like a fraction of the price. Remember years ago, CES was all about new TVs?
Yeah.
Like that's what it would be every year. Hasn't been like that in a long time, but this still TV is getting some love. This one comes with interchangeable bezels, 4K resolution, support for high dynamic range formats, 2,000 pieces of free art. But here's the thing.
Is it good art?
It's the Fire TV software interface, and the Fire TV mobile app will let users browse content and manage their watch lists. For TVs
so like
nowadays,
a regular television.
What's that?
Nothing, Tim. I'm just.
Well, I'm saying for TVs nowadays, it's all about the operating system, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, you can put a Roku on anything essentially.
I have to tell you though,
I don't know if I want an Alexa-enabled TV.
Yeah, I was on vacation, and the house that we had rented.
Oh, you were gone?
They had one of these TVs. It wasn't Amazon.
It was a Samsung one.
But it was great. Honestly, we didn't realize it was a TV. It just looked like a piece of art on the wall, and then we kind of realized, oh, this is what we watch here. So I can see it. I like it.
I think what's interesting too is
I still have a little,
Amazon,
small black and white TV.
Amazon copying other companies, right, with their products, and they've gotten really
quite
good
a bit
at
cheaper.
that.
I think the first time.
Yeah, we did miss you. By the way.
Yes.
Yes.
I thought there was more
cliffhanger there.
I was going to go somewhere, but
You're ravishing.
By the way, Carol decided not to start the new year off like this.
We did miss you, so it's good to have the whole team
we missed
back.
you too. At least I did. I don't know about Katie.
I absolutely did. But I could watch them. You guys were on all last week, so We weren't far.
Just see how she said that? You guys were on all last week.
She was the
I
one
tuned
watching
in
us.
a
She
little
was the one
bit.
watching us on vacation. So thanks for doing
I like
that.
to keep a TV on, support the cause.
All right, anyway, Happy New Year, guys. It is good to be back with you.